My name is Sage Montenegro. I am 28 years old, and last Saturday I stood alone in my beautifully decorated dream home, staring at enough food for 30 people while my phone remained silent. 7 years of saving countless overtime shifts and endless sacrifices had led to this moment. The housewarming party I had planned for months became a ghost town. Not one family member showed up. Not even a text. But what I discovered 3 days later, about why they abandoned me, would shatter everything I believed about blood loyalty and change our family forever. Before we dive into this wild family betrayal story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button if you have ever felt betrayed by family, and do not forget to subscribe because this story has more twists than a soap opera. Trust me, you will want to stick around to see how this revenge unfolds and justice gets served ice cold. The silence in my house that weekend was deafening. I had spent months planning this housewarming party, sending out invitations 6 weeks in advance, following up with personal phone calls, and even creating a family group chat to coordinate everything. My parents, my two sisters Emma and Claire, my brother Marcus and their families had all confirmed their attendance. 32 people total had promised to celebrate this milestone with me. I had worked 3 jobs for 7 years to save for this house. Weekend shifts at the hospital where I worked as a registered nurse, freelance medical writing during my lunch breaks, and tutoring pre-med students every evening. While my siblings were getting married, having children, and enjoying their comfortable middle-class lives, I was living in a studio apartment, eating ramen noodles and putting every spare dollar toward my down payment. The house was everything I had dreamed of. A beautiful Victorian in the historic district, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, original hardwood floors, and a wraparound porch that overlooked the park. I had spent weeks preparing for the party, hiring caterers, decorating every room, and even installing new lighting in the backyard for the evening celebration. Saturday arrived with perfect weather. I woke up early, did a final walkthrough, arranged the flowers, and set up the music playlist. The caterers arrived at noon and set up an incredible spread: shrimp cocktail, beef tenderloin, vegetarian lasagna, artisanal cheese boards, and a dessert table that looked like something from a magazine. I had even ordered a custom cake with a photo of the house printed on top. 1 o'clock came and went. No one arrived. I checked my phone obsessively, thinking maybe I had missed something. 2 o'clock passed. Then 3. The caterers kept asking if they should start packing up, and I kept telling them to wait just a little longer. By 4 o'clock, I finally accepted that no one was coming. I paid the caterers, sent them home with most of the food, and sat alone in my beautifully decorated living room trying not to cry. The humiliation was overwhelming. I had been so excited to show off what I had accomplished, to prove that all those years of sacrifice had been worth it. Instead, I felt like the biggest fool in the world. Sunday was even worse. I kept expecting someone to call with an explanation or an apology. Maybe there had been a family emergency I did not know about. Maybe they had gotten confused about the date. But my phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts, no nothing. It was as if I had imagined the entire thing. Monday morning, I dragged myself to work, exhausted from a sleepless weekend. My colleague Jennifer immediately noticed something was wrong and pulled me aside during our break. "How was the housewarming party?" she asked excitedly. "I want to see pictures." I broke down and told her everything. Jennifer was furious on my behalf and insisted on taking me out for drinks after our shift. We went to a quiet bar near the hospital, and I poured out my heart about how betrayed and confused I felt. "This does not make sense," Jennifer said, nursing her wine. 30 people do not just forget about a party. Something happened and you need to find out what. That was when she suggested something that changed everything. "Have you checked social media? Maybe there are clues there." I had been avoiding Instagram and Facebook all weekend, too embarrassed to see if anyone had posted about other weekend activities while ignoring my party. But Jennifer was right. I needed answers. We sat in that dimly lit bar, and I opened Instagram with trembling fingers. The first thing I saw made my blood run cold. My sister Emma had posted a series of photos from what was clearly a party. The timestamp showed Saturday afternoon, the exact same time as my housewarming. She was laughing and hugging people I recognized. Our parents were there. Claire and Marcus were there with their families. Even my aunts, uncles, and cousins who had been invited to my party were in the background. The caption read, Surprise early birthday celebration for our amazing Claire. Nothing beats family time. So grateful for these people who always show up for each other. I scrolled through the comments and saw dozens of heart emojis and messages about what a wonderful time everyone had. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. Jennifer leaned over to look at the screen and gasped. "They planned a competing party," she whispered. "They deliberately scheduled something else at the exact same time as your housewarming, but it got worse, much worse." I clicked over to Claire's profile and found even more photos. The party was being held at our parents' house, the same house where I had grown up, the same backyard where we had celebrated countless birthdays and holidays. They had recreated the exact menu I had told them about for my party. The same appetizers, the same main courses, even a similar cake. The final blow came when I saw a group photo that someone had tagged all of them in. They were all there, every single person who had promised to come to my housewarming, raising their glasses in a toast. But what made me physically sick was the comment thread underneath. Marcus had written perfect timing for this party. So much better than spending Saturday afternoon pretending to care about overpriced real estate. My mother had liked the comment. Emma had replied, "Right, some people really need to learn that money cannot buy class or family loyalty." Claire had added, "True. Thank goodness we have each other and do not need to prove anything to anyone." I sat in that bar reading comment after comment that made it clear this was not a coincidence. This was not a scheduling conflict or a family emergency. This was deliberate. They had planned a competing event specifically to humiliate me, and they were celebrating their success online for everyone to see. Jennifer had to physically take my phone away from me because I was hyperventilating. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that I could not process it. These were the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. These were the people I had worked so hard to impress, to make proud. As we sat there in stunned silence, one thought kept echoing in my mind. If they wanted to play games, I was about to show them exactly what 7 years of strategic planning and unwavering determination looked like when it was turned against them. I called in sick to work the next day. Not because I was physically ill, but because I needed time to think clearly without the distraction of patients and medical emergencies. I sat in my beautiful empty house with a cup of coffee and my laptop, methodically going through every social media post, every comment, and every photo from their counterparty. The evidence was overwhelming. This was not a spontaneous celebration for Claire. The decorations were too elaborate, the food too coordinated, and the guest list too comprehensive. Someone had spent weeks planning this event specifically to coincide with my housewarming. The question was who, and more importantly, why. I started taking screenshots of everything. Every post, every comment, every tagged photo. Jennifer had taught me years ago during her messy divorce that documentation was everything, and I was treating this family betrayal like the crime it was. By noon, I had compiled a digital folder with over 50 pieces of evidence. But I needed more information. I needed to understand the motivation behind this level of cruelty. That was when I remembered my cousin Dylan, Marcus's oldest son, who was away at college and had not been at either event. Dylan and I had always been close despite the age difference. He was studying computer science and had a summer internship that kept him busy, but we texted occasionally about school and life. More importantly, he was the kind of person who noticed things and had no filter when it came to family drama. I crafted a casual text message. "Hey Dylan, miss seeing you this weekend. How is the internship going?" His response came back within an hour. "Internship is great, sorry I missed the drama though. Mom said you were pretty upset that no one came to your party because they were all at Aunt Claire's thing instead." There it was. Confirmation that Marcus's family knew exactly what had happened and were talking about it openly. I took a screenshot and then responded carefully. "Yeah, it was disappointing. I guess I missed the memo about Claire's party. When did that get planned?" Dylan's next message was a goldmine. "Oh, that has been in the works for like a month. Mom and Aunt Emma were texting constantly about it. They were super stressed about the timing because apparently you had scheduled your thing for the same day, and they did not want to hurt your feelings by asking you to move it." I stared at my phone screen, feeling something cold settle in my chest. They had known about the conflict for a month and had chosen not to tell me. They had let me spend money, time, and emotional energy on a party they had no intention of attending. I pressed for more information. That is so weird. I wonder why no one mentioned it to me. I would have been happy to reschedule. Dylan's response came quickly. Yeah, Mom said something about how you have been really intense about this house thing and they did not want to deal with you getting dramatic about changing the date. Honestly, the whole thing seems kind of mean to me, but what do I know? There it was. The truth delivered casually by a 20-year-old who had no idea he was handing me ammunition for a war I was just beginning to plan. I spent the rest of the afternoon researching. Not just social media stalking, but real research. I pulled up property records, tax information, and financial documents that were publicly available. I looked into my siblings' employment histories, their social connections, and their recent major purchases. What I found was fascinating and useful. Emma, who had been the most vocal about my overpriced real estate, was underwater on her mortgage after refinancing twice to pay for luxury vacations. Claire, who had made comments about money not buying class, had recently been turned down for a promotion at her marketing firm, due to what I could only assume were performance issues based on the timing. Marcus, who had called my house overpriced, was leasing his car and renting his home despite being 5 years older than me. Meanwhile, I owned my home outright, had excellent credit, substantial savings, and a career that was recession-proof. The picture that emerged was not one of successful siblings looking down on their younger sister, but rather one of jealous family members who had made poor financial decisions and resented my success. That evening, I called my grandmother on my father's side. Nana Montenegro had always been the family truth-teller, and at 82, she had zero patience for nonsense. She was also the one person in our family who commanded universal respect. Sage darling, she answered on the first ring. I heard about your beautiful new house. I am so proud of you for working so hard to achieve your dreams. Thank you, Nana. I was hoping you could come see it soon. There was a pause. Well, I was expecting an invitation to that party you were planning. Your mother mentioned it weeks ago, but I never received anything. My heart started racing. You never got an invitation, are you sure? Positive, dear. I was disappointed but assumed you were keeping it small. Then I heard from your Aunt Rosa that there was some sort of conflict with Claire's birthday party. The whole thing sounds very confusing. I spent the next hour carefully extracting information from Nana without revealing too much about what I had discovered. What emerged was a picture of a family whisper campaign that had been going on for months. My success had become a source of resentment, and my siblings had been actively working to diminish my achievements in the eyes of our extended family. According to Nana, there had been comments about me being too focused on material things and losing touch with family values. Emma had apparently told people that I had become difficult to be around since buying the house. Claire had suggested that I was showing off and trying to make everyone else feel bad about their choices. The most damaging revelation came when Nana mentioned a conversation she had overheard between my parents and my aunt. They were saying something about teaching you a lesson about humility and family priorities. Teaching me a lesson. They had destroyed what should have been one of the happiest days of my life because they wanted to teach me a lesson about humility. I thanked Nana and promised to visit her soon with a proper invitation to see the house. After I hung up, I sat in my living room and felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, but it was transforming into something sharper and more focused. They had underestimated me completely. They saw a little sister who had gotten lucky with a house purchase and needed to be put in her place. What they failed to recognize was that I had spent 7 years developing the kind of discipline, strategic thinking, and resilience that came from working toward a goal that everyone told me was impossible. I opened my laptop and created a new folder on my desktop. I labeled it Operation Family Values and started making a list. If they wanted to play psychological warfare, I was about to show them exactly what someone with my skill set could accomplish when properly motivated. The next morning, I woke up with the kind of clarity that comes after a sleepless night of planning. I had moved past the emotional devastation and into operational mode. This was no longer about hurt feelings or family reconciliation. This was about consequences and justice. My first call was to Jennifer, who arrived at my house an hour later with coffee and pastries from our favorite bakery. I spread out all my evidence across my dining room table like a detective working a case. Screenshots, financial records, family trees with relationship dynamics mapped out, and a timeline of events going back 6 months. Holy hell, Sage Jennifer said, studying the documents. This is not just family drama. This is a coordinated campaign to sabotage you. She was right. The evidence showed a pattern of deliberate exclusion and manipulation that went far beyond a single-party conflict. They had been systematically undermining me for months, possibly years, and I had been too focused on my own goals to notice. Jennifer helped me organize everything into categories: financial motivations, social manipulations, and what we started calling evidence of premeditation. The picture that emerged was damning. You need allies, Jennifer said, reviewing my family tree notes. Who in your family has integrity? Who would be horrified if they knew the truth about what happened? That was when I thought of my cousin Maya, Emma's daughter, who was 25 and worked as a social worker. Maya had always been different from the rest of the family. She called out unfairness when she saw it and had no patience for petty drama. More importantly, she had not been at the counterparty because she had been working a weekend shift at the domestic violence shelter where she was employed. I texted Maya carefully, "Hey, wanted to check in on you. Missed seeing you this weekend at my housewarming." Her response came back immediately, "Wait, that was this weekend. I am so sorry, I completely forgot. Work has been insane. How did it go?" Perfect. Maya genuinely did not know what had happened. I crafted my response to sound disappointed but not accusatory. It was actually really tough. No one from the family showed up. Apparently there was a conflict with your mom's party for Claire that I did not know about. Maya called me within 5 minutes. "What do you mean no one showed up?" she demanded. "That is impossible. Mom has been talking about your party for weeks." "I know it sounds crazy," I said, letting genuine hurt creep into my voice. "I keep thinking maybe I missed something or got confused about the date, but I have all the invitations and confirmations saved. This is messed up, Sage. Something is not right here. Can I come over tonight after work? I want to see your house anyway, and we need to figure out what happened." Maya arrived at 7 that evening with Thai takeout and a bottle of wine. She toured my house first, genuinely excited and impressed by what I had accomplished. Her reaction was everything I had hoped to get from my family that weekend. "This place is incredible," she said, running her hands along the original crown molding in the living room. "You should be so proud of yourself. 7 years of saving, and look what you built." We sat in my kitchen eating pad thai while I carefully shared the timeline of events. I showed her the invitations I had sent, the group chat confirmations, and then, with apparent reluctance, the social media posts from the counterparty. Maya's reaction was everything I had hoped for. She went through the same emotional journey I had experienced: confusion, disbelief, and then righteous anger. "They planned this," she said, scrolling through her mother's Instagram. "Look at the decorations, look at the food. This took weeks to organize. They knew exactly what they were doing." I nodded sadly. "I keep trying to understand why. Did I do something wrong? Have I been a bad sister or daughter without realizing it?" "Stop that right now," Maya said firmly. "You have been nothing but supportive of everyone in this family. You helped pay for Claire's wedding flowers when she went over budget. You covered Marcus's car payment last Christmas when he got laid off. You have been there for everyone, and this is how they repay you." That was when I knew Maya was completely on my side. But I needed more than moral support. I needed information and strategic assistance. "Maya, can I ask you something confidential?" I said, refilling her wine glass. "Have you noticed any weird family dynamics lately? Any conversations that seemed off?" Maya was quiet for a long moment, then sighed heavily. "Actually, yes. There have been some really uncomfortable comments about you over the past few months, Mom and Aunt Claire especially." "Like what, honestly?" "They have been saying you are getting too big for your britches. That you are trying to show off and make everyone else look bad. There was this whole conversation at Easter about how you were becoming difficult and self-centered." My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. "That is really hurtful to hear." "Do you think that is true?" "Absolutely not," Maya said immediately. "You are one of the most generous people I know, but I think some people in our family have issues with your success. It makes them uncomfortable that you accomplished something big without help from anyone." Maya continued talking, and I listened carefully while mentally cataloging every piece of information. She told me about group chats I was not included in, conversations that stopped when I entered rooms, and what she called a whole weird vibe around my house purchase. "The thing that really bothers me," Maya said, "is how they talk about your career like it is not real work. As if being a nurse is somehow less valuable than Claire's marketing job or Emma's part-time bookkeeping. They say things about my career. Mom keeps saying you are lucky to have a recession-proof job, like you did not earn your nursing degree and work your way up. And Claire made some comment about how healthcare workers are overpaid these days. It is jealousy, pure and simple." Maya stayed until almost midnight, and by the time she left, I had a complete picture of the family dynamics I had been oblivious to. More importantly, I had a genuine ally who was disgusted by her mother's behavior and willing to help me gather more information. 2 days later, Maya texted me with intelligence that changed everything. "Found out something big. Mom and Aunt Claire have been planning something they called Operation Reality Check for weeks. They wanted to bring you back down to earth and show you that family matters more than material success. There are text screenshots. Can we meet?" We met for lunch at a restaurant across town where we would not run into any family members. Maya had screenshot evidence that was even more damaging than what I had already collected. The group chat between Emma, Claire, and my mother was titled Sage Situation and contained weeks of messages about their plans. The messages revealed that they had deliberately scheduled Claire's party to conflict with my housewarming. They had discussed whether to tell me about the conflict and decided against it because they wanted me to learn a lesson about assuming people will drop everything for you. Most damning was a message from my mother. "Maybe if she sits alone in her fancy house for a few hours, she will remember what really matters in life." "This is psychological abuse," Maya said, sliding her phone across the table. "They planned to humiliate you as some sort of twisted intervention." That was the moment I realized this was bigger than family drama. This was systematic emotional manipulation designed to punish me for succeeding. And now that I understood the scope of their betrayal, I could plan my response accordingly. "Maya," I said, taking a deep breath, "I need your help with something. But you have to promise me you will not try to talk me out of it." She looked at me with concern and curiosity. "What are you planning?" "I am going to make sure they understand exactly what kind of lesson they taught me about family values, and I am going to make sure the entire family knows the truth about what they did." Maya stared at me for a long moment, then smiled grimly. "Tell me what you need." I spent the following week executing what Maya and I had dubbed Operation Truth and Consequences. The plan was elegant in its simplicity: expose their betrayal using their own methods against them, but with surgical precision and undeniable evidence. First, I reached out to every family member who had been excluded from both parties: cousins, aunts, uncles, and family friends who had not been invited to either event. I presented myself as confused and hurt, asking if they knew why I had not heard from anyone after my housewarming party. The responses were eye-opening. Half of them had no idea I had even bought a house, let alone thrown a party. The other half had heard conflicting stories about family drama but had not been given accurate information. My Aunt Rosa was particularly upset when she learned the truth. "They told me you had decided to postpone the housewarming indefinitely because of some personal issues," she said during our phone call. "I was worried something was wrong with your health." Next, I organized what I called the real housewarming for the following Saturday. I invited everyone who had been excluded from the original guest list, plus Maya and a few other family members who had been kept in the dark about the original party politics. This time I sent invitations through multiple channels: text, email, phone calls, and even mailed cards to ensure no one could claim they had not received them. The response was overwhelming. 38 people confirmed attendance, including several family members who were horrified when they learned what had happened the previous weekend. My grandmother was particularly excited to finally see the house she had heard so much about. But the real genius of my plan was not the party itself. It was what I had planned to reveal during the party. Maya had been working her own connections within the family, carefully sharing screenshots and evidence with key people who had influence and moral authority. My cousin David, who was studying law, was particularly outraged when he saw the Sage Situation group chat messages. "This is harassment," he told me during a family dinner at our grandmother's house that Wednesday. "They coordinated a campaign to emotionally abuse you, and they documented their intentions." In some contexts, this could be considered intentional infliction of emotional distress. Word was spreading through the family network faster than I had anticipated. People were taking sides, and it was becoming clear that my parents and siblings had seriously miscalculated the family reaction to their behavior. Thursday evening, my mother finally called me. "Sage, we need to talk," she said, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. "People are saying some very hurtful things about what happened last weekend, and I think there has been a misunderstanding." "What kind of misunderstanding?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Well, apparently some people think we deliberately avoided your party, which is ridiculous. Claire's celebration was planned months in advance, and we assumed you would understand that family birthdays take priority." I let the silence stretch for a long moment. "Mom, Claire's birthday is not until next month." Another pause. "Well, we wanted to celebrate early because of scheduling conflicts." "What scheduling conflicts, Sage? I do not appreciate this interrogation. We are your family, and we should not have to justify our decisions to you. The fact that you are stirring up drama and turning people against us is very disappointing." That was when I knew she had no intention of apologizing or taking responsibility. They were doubling down on their story and trying to make me the villain for exposing their behavior. "You are right, Mom. Families should not have to justify their decisions. I am glad we agree on that principle." I hung up and immediately called Maya. "It is time for phase 2. Saturday's party was perfect. The weather was beautiful, the food was excellent, and the guest list included everyone who mattered to me. My grandmother held court in my living room, telling stories and praising my accomplishment to anyone who would listen. My cousins brought their children who ran around my backyard squealing with delight. At 4 in the afternoon, when everyone was relaxed and happy, I asked for attention to make a toast. "I want to thank everyone for being here today." I began raising my wine glass. "Last weekend I learned some very important lessons about family loyalty and the difference between people who love you and people who claim to love you." The crowd quieted, sensing that something significant was about to happen. "Some of you know that I planned a housewarming party last Saturday that no one attended. What many of you do not know is why." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the portable speaker I had set up. "I want to share some text messages that I think will help clarify the situation." I began reading excerpts from the Sage Situation group chat, changing the voices for different family members. The reaction from my guests was immediate and visceral. Gasps, shocked murmurs, and expressions of outrage rippled through the crowd. Maya stood up and added her own evidence, sharing additional messages and explaining how the counterparty had been deliberately planned to humiliate me. Several other family members began sharing their own experiences with similar exclusion and manipulation. By the time we finished presenting the evidence, there was no question about what had happened or who was responsible. The betrayal was documented, witnessed, and now public knowledge within our extended family network. My Aunt Rosa was the first to speak. "This is absolutely unacceptable," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "Nobody treats family this way. Nobody." My grandmother was even more direct. "Emma, Claire, and their parents owe you a serious apology," she declared. "And until they make this right, they are not welcome at any family gathering I host." The party continued for several more hours, but the tone had shifted from celebration to solidarity. People were rallying around me in ways I had never experienced before. Family members were volunteering to help with house projects, inviting me to their own events, and making it clear that they considered my parents' and siblings' behavior to be completely unacceptable. By evening, my phone was buzzing with messages from the guilty parties. Emma was demanding that I stop spreading lies. Claire was claiming that I had misunderstood their intentions. Marcus was accusing me of manipulating the family against them. But the most telling message came from my father, who had been silent throughout the entire ordeal. "Your mother is very upset. I hope you are satisfied with the chaos you have created." I screenshot that message and sent it to Maya with a simple reply: "Mission accomplished." They had wanted to teach me a lesson about family values and humility. Instead, they had learned that underestimating someone with 7 years of strategic planning experience and a network of allies was a very expensive mistake. The fallout from my revelation party was swift and comprehensive. By Sunday morning, my phone was exploding with messages, calls, and social media notifications. The family network that had been carefully controlled by my parents and siblings for years was now in complete chaos, and the power dynamics had shifted dramatically. Maya texted me early with an update from her mother's side of the family. Mom is in full panic mode. Apparently, Grandma Montenegro called her at 6 this morning and gave her a lecture about family values that lasted 45 minutes. She is claiming you have brainwashed everyone against her. The domino effect was remarkable to watch. My Aunt Rosa had called every family member she could reach, sharing the evidence and demanding accountability. My cousin David was threatening to write a formal complaint about their behavior and present it at the next family reunion. Most importantly, my grandmother had made it clear that anyone who supported Emma Claire or my parents' actions would not be welcome at her upcoming 80th birthday celebration, which was traditionally the biggest family event of the year. Monday brought even more dramatic developments. My mother called me 3 times, but I let each call go to voicemail. Her messages progressively became more desperate and angry. First message: Sage, we need to discuss this situation like adults. Call me back immediately. Second message: I cannot believe you would air our family's private business like this. You have embarrassed all of us and destroyed relationships that took years to build. Third message: your father and I are considering whether we want you at family events going forward if this is how you handle disagreements. That third message was exactly what I had been waiting for. I screenshot it and forwarded it to my network of allies with a note, in case anyone was wondering who the real manipulators are in this family. Tuesday, the professional consequences began. Claire worked at a small marketing firm where personal reputation mattered significantly. Apparently, one of her coworkers was married to my cousin Jessica, who had been at my party and witnessed the evidence presentation. Word about Claire's behavior had made it back to her workplace, where people were questioning her character and judgment. Emma faced similar problems. She did bookkeeping for several small businesses in our town, including one owned by my Aunt Rosa's neighbor. When the story spread through their social circles, Emma found herself losing clients who did not want to work with someone capable of such calculated cruelty toward family. Marcus had the most dramatic consequences. His wife Sarah called me Wednesday evening crying and apologetic. Sage, I had no idea what they were planning, she sobbed. Marcus told me your party was cancelled because you were having second thoughts about the house purchase. When I saw the text messages Maya shared, I was horrified. I have been married to him for 12 years and I never knew he was capable of something like this. Sarah revealed that she was considering separation. The betrayal and manipulation had opened her eyes to patterns of behavior she had been ignoring for years. Marcus had been controlling their social calendar, limiting her relationships with people he deemed problematic, and consistently undermining her confidence in ways she was only now recognizing. He convinced me that your success was somehow a threat to our marriage, she continued. He said you were becoming arrogant, and that we needed to bring you back down to earth for the good of the family. I feel like I have been living with a stranger. Thursday brought the most satisfying development of all. My parents requested a family meeting at their house with Emma, Claire, Marcus, and me. They positioned it as an intervention to heal the family rift and move past this unfortunate misunderstanding. I agreed to attend, but only with conditions. Maya would come with me as a witness. I would be recording the conversation for my own protection, and we would have a strict time limit of 1 hour. The meeting was everything I expected and more. My parents had prepared a script that painted them as the victims of my vindictive campaign against the family. They claimed that the party conflict had been a genuine scheduling mistake, that the text messages had been taken out of context, and that my decision to go public with private family business was the real betrayal. Emma was particularly aggressive, accusing me of weaponizing the extended family against them and destroying relationships for my own ego. Claire claimed that she was now facing professional consequences because of my lies and manipulation. Marcus said that I had destroyed his marriage and that Sarah was talking about divorce because of the false narrative I had created. But the most revealing moment came when my father tried to reassert control over the situation. This family meeting is about finding a path forward, he announced. We are willing to forgive your behavior if you publicly apologize to your siblings and agree to stop spreading these stories about what happened. What exactly should I apologize for? I asked calmly. for causing drama, for embarrassing your family, and for refusing to handle this conflict privately like mature adults do. That was when I played my ace card. I pulled out my phone and began reading their own text messages back to them, word for word, including timestamps and participant names. The room fell completely silent as their own words condemned them. "So, just to be clear," I said when I finished reading, "you want me to apologize for exposing your deliberate plan to humiliate me, which you documented in writing and executed perfectly. You want me to apologize for the consequences of your own actions, which you are now facing because family members are disgusted by your behavior." My mother tried to interrupt, but I continued. "You taught me exactly what you intended to teach me. You taught me that blood relationships do not guarantee loyalty or love. You taught me that some people will smile to your face while plotting your humiliation behind your back. You taught me that success can make people who claim to love you reveal their true character. Most importantly, you taught me that I need to choose my real family very carefully." I stood up to leave with Maya following behind me. "We are not done here," my father called after me. "Actually, we are," I replied without turning around. "You accomplished exactly what you set out to accomplish. You destroyed our family relationship. Congratulations." As Maya and I walked to our cars, she squeezed my hand and said, "You did the right thing." They needed to hear exactly what they had done. The meeting confirmed what I had suspected all along. They were not sorry for their betrayal. They were only sorry that it had consequences they could not control. 6 months have passed since my housewarming party that nobody attended, and the transformation in my life has been remarkable. What started as the most humiliating day of my adult life became the catalyst for building the authentic family relationships I had always wanted but never knew how to achieve. The immediate aftermath was challenging but ultimately liberating. My parents, Emma, Claire, and Marcus, doubled down on their victim narrative for several weeks, trying to convince extended family members that I was the real villain in the situation. Their strategy backfired spectacularly when people started sharing their own stories about similar manipulation and exclusion over the years. It turned out that my betrayal was not an isolated incident, but part of a pattern of controlling behavior that had been damaging family relationships for decades. My cousin Teresa revealed that she had been excluded from holiday celebrations for 3 years because Emma disapproved of her boyfriend. My uncle Robert shared that he had stopped attending family events because my father consistently made disparaging comments about his career choices. Even my grandmother admitted that she had been walking on eggshells around her own children to avoid conflict. The revelation party had given people permission to speak truth about dynamics they had been tolerating for years. Within 2 months, a completely new family structure emerged, built around mutual respect rather than hierarchical control. Maya and I have become incredibly close. She ended up moving out of her mother's house and renting a small apartment near my neighborhood. Emma initially tried to manipulate her into choosing sides, but Maya had learned too much about her mother's character to be swayed by guilt trips and emotional manipulation. "I love my mom," Maya told me during one of our weekly dinners at my house, "but I cannot respect someone who treats family members the way she treated you." She raised me to believe in fairness and kindness, then showed me that those values only apply when it is convenient for her. My relationship with my grandmother has deepened in beautiful ways. She comes to my house every Sunday for what we call truth and tea sessions, where we cook together and she shares stories about family history that my parents had never told me. Through her, I learned that my grandfather had faced similar exclusion from his siblings when he achieved financial success as a young man. "Your grandfather used to say that success reveals character in the people around you," Nana told me while we made pasta sauce in my kitchen. "The people who celebrate your achievements are your real family. The people who resent your success are just relatives." She has also been instrumental in rebuilding family connections that had been damaged by years of my parents' controlling behavior. Through her network, I have reconnected with cousins and extended family members who had been gradually excluded from the inner circle for various perceived infractions. The professional consequences for my siblings have been lasting and appropriate. Claire lost 2 major clients at her marketing firm and eventually had to take a significant pay cut to keep her job. Emma's bookkeeping business never recovered from the reputation damage, and she ended up having to take a full-time position with someone else's firm. Marcus and Sarah did divorce, and he now sees his children every other weekend while paying substantial alimony and child support. But the most significant change has been in my own understanding of what family means. The people who show up for you consistently, who celebrate your successes without jealousy, who support you through challenges without judgment, those are your real family members, regardless of blood relation. My chosen family now includes Maya, my grandmother, several cousins who had been marginalized by the family power structure, Jennifer, from work, and new friends I have met through my neighborhood and professional networks. We gather regularly at my house for dinners, game nights, and celebrations that feel genuine and supportive in ways my childhood family events never did. Last month, we threw a surprise party for my grandmother's 81st birthday. 43 people attended, including family members from both sides of her family tree and friends from her community groups. My parents, Emma, Claire, and Marcus, were not invited, and according to my Aunt Rosa, they spent the evening at home wondering why their phones were unusually quiet. The most healing aspect of this entire experience has been the letters and messages I have received from extended family members who wanted me to know that they had always admired my work ethic and achievements. My cousin Linda wrote me a 5-page letter about how my example had inspired her to go back to school for her nursing degree. My Uncle James called to tell me that my house had motivated him to finally start his own business after years of talking about it. You showed all of us that it is possible to build something meaningful through discipline and hard work, he said. More importantly, you showed us that we do not have to tolerate disrespect from people just because we share DNA with them. Recently, I received an unexpected message from Sarah Marcus's ex-wife. She has been attending therapy since their divorce and wanted to thank me for opening her eyes to patterns of manipulation she had been accepting for years. The courage you showed in standing up for yourself taught me that I could do the same thing, she wrote. My therapist says that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable their toxic behavior. You did that for our entire family, even though it cost you relationships that mattered to you. That message made me realize that my revenge had evolved into something much more meaningful than justice for a single betrayal. It had become a catalyst for healing and growth that extended far beyond my own situation. Do I miss my parents and siblings? Sometimes. I miss the idea of them, the family I thought we were before I understood who they really were. But I do not miss walking on eggshells, minimizing my achievements to make them comfortable, or pretending that their jealousy and manipulation were normal expressions of family love. My house has become the gathering place for real family celebrations, authentic conversations, and the kind of unconditional support I always thought blood relatives were supposed to provide. Every room holds memories of laughter, honest discussions, and people showing up for each other without ulterior motives. The empty house that broke my heart 6 months ago is now filled with chosen family who celebrate my successes, support my dreams, and treat me with the respect and love that everyone deserves from their family. Speaking of family and the lessons we learn from these experiences, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between toxic family members and your own well-being? Have you experienced that moment when you realize that someone's jealousy of your success is more important to them than your happiness? Drop a comment below and share your story, because I have learned that we are definitely not alone in dealing with family drama that tests our boundaries and our values. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life drama and family justice stories. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that it is okay to set boundaries with family members who do not treat you with basic respect and kindness. Thank you for listening to my journey from betrayal to healing, and remember that sometimes the most important lesson we can learn is that real family is not about blood relations, but about the people who consistently choose to love and support us authentically.